Well, a claim is doing the rounds on social media that sparked panic among taxpayers. The claim says that from April 1st, 2026, the Income Tax Department will get sweeping powers to access your emails, your social media accounts, cloud storage, and digital platforms. The government has now stepped in to clarify and call this claim as misleading. The PIB fact check says there is no blanket powers given to tax authorities to monitor or access your private digital accounts of any citizen for that matter. So, how did this confusion even erupt? The confusion is around Section 247 of the Income Tax Act 2025. According to the government, this section applies only during authorized search and survey operations, not for regular taxpayers. This means that your emails or social media cannot be accessed routinely. It's not as if the income tax suspects that there is some foul play from your end and decides to scrutinize your accounts. Doesn't happen like that. They need to have proper authorization from the tax agency and proof to suggest why they suspect there's tax evasion. Well, there's no mass surveillance, that's for sure. The government clarifies no mass surveillance at all. There is no automatic digital monitoring either. Now, these powers come into play only when there is credible evidence of serious tax evasion and that of a large scale. Something that's tax evasion that's done on large scale is when authorization is given to probe social media accounts as well. Now, what's not and who's not affected here? Salaried employees are not affected. Law-abiding taxpayers, of course, need not worry. Routine scrutiny or assessments not happening. Now, who is affected though? Cases involving black money, large-scale tax evasion, authorized search and seizure operations. Only with regards to such big cases is an authorization given to scan social media accounts and emails. The government has also clarified that these powers are not new at all. It's been there since 1961 under the Income Tax Act of 1961. Since then, that has been the norm to scrutinize social platforms and emails. Officers could seize documents and evidence. The new law simply recognizes that evidence today can also be digital. It's not just hard evidence like your hard cash or jewelry, but also evidence could be verified or corroborated through your digital platforms. So there's no provision that allows the Income Tax Department to freely access your email, social media or digital platforms from 1st April 2026. That's a clarification that the government has given. Any digital access is limited, conditional and legally bound, applies only in serious tax evasion cases, not to ordinary citizens. We have with us joining us Krishan Malhotra, who's a tax expert. We also have Advocate Pawan Dugal, cyber law expert, and also Kanish Gaur, who's a cyber expert as well. Thanks very much, all of you. Let me bring in Krishan Malhotra on this. As a tax expert, sir, what's your take on this? There was a lot of buzz around the government having sweeping powers. Basically, income tax now, if they have any suspicion, can scrutinize your social accounts. Government says wrong and not a new law, has always been there. We're just recognizing the fact that evidence can go beyond hard evidence. It can get it. There is digital evidence. Now we're in a digital world. Digital evidence is important to be scrutinized, and only with regards to large scale tax evasion.
So I think you have very rightly explained. I would just like to tell you a little bit of history. Initially, there used to be a section 132. Whenever the search and seizure used to take place, they were giving the authorities to the tax to the tax authorities to look at your books of accounts, to get as much data by visiting your place, business place, or your houses. And there was a word, in case if the documents are placed in a electronic device, then they can also access the electronic device. So there was always a confusion in terms of whether WhatsApp, whether the cloud servers, so whether your personal emails can be accessed. The department was always of this view that since the word is electronic device, we can access everything, whereas it was only restricted to IT, and it was not explained, neither it was defined. In the new bill, which will now become effective from 1st April 2026, they have clarified and they have made the changes, not changes, they have included three words. They are saying they can have an access, the authorities can have access to all the documents, including a virtual digital space. So these three words, virtual digital place, has already been incorporated in the law. And in order to avoid any confusion, by section 261, they defined what do they mean by virtual digital space, where they have specified and they have given the instances to say it includes emails, it includes servers, social, the media account, any website with the details where the ownership of where the people are holding their assets, online investments, digital application platforms, remote or cloud servers. So now everything is defined in a way. Initially, there was a confusion. So now, to say that there was a law initially, there was only the word electronic device which was not explained, and I don't think that includes all this. But now, by using the word virtual digital space, I think they have defined, by defining also, they can certainly have an access whenever they do search and seizure. So that is what change which they have brought in the new law to avoid any doubts in the
Okay,
minds of the
okay. Let
people.
me bring in Kanishk. Kanishk, do you have questions?
See, if you look at when you apply for US visa, the US Department of Homeland Security was already doing social media checks, and for which people were told to make their social media accounts public. Now, if we have got businessmen who take vacations outside this country and file a very low tax return, it is the duty of the income tax department to verify their social media handles to see whether these people are actually depositing the correct tax or not. So, social media account verification, I believe, is a good step because it will allow the income tax department to validate whether people are being honest and truthful while filing their income tax returns, because people travel abundantly, but when it comes to paying tax to the government, there is mass level of falsehood which is run across the country. So I believe it's a great step by the government. It should have happened much earlier
What I think
than
is
now.
the
It would have
fear. What
got
is
a
the
lot of
fear
people
here?
being more truthful.
What the fear here is that that data could be misused for any other reason. You know, if you have, it depends on the government of the day. The information that they could gather through scanning through your emails or your social platforms could be misused against you. Even if you are a law-abiding citizen, this kind of surveillance is not really welcome if it is a blanket ruling. Though the government now clarifies it's only to do with large-scale tax evasion. But with the way you're defining it, you're saying if a businessman is traveling and he's now you have so many billionaires, millionaires in India. How do you know what is large scale, what is small scale? Can I also bring in Mr. Pawan Dugal on this? Mr. Pawan Dugal, your take on that. How do you define a large scale tax evasion or a small tax evasion? I mean, what is small, what is large? The government says only large scale tax evasion. Will there be such kind of surveillance?
Clearly, when law is drafted in manners which can allow for multiple interpretations, then the interpretation that's best going to suit the statutory authorities is what's going to be taken. So in a scenario like this, I'm of the firm opinion that the tax agencies will have the power to go ahead and scan your social media if the power is existing. So first and foremost, the constitutionality of that particular power will have to be tested. Maybe some litigation or public interest litigation goes to the Supreme Court in this regard. But more significantly, I believe that today, when almost everything is happening in the electronic ecosystem, people also need to be careful that whatever digital footprints they are leaving behind will be used by state authorities and agencies for the purposes of going ahead and either prosecuting them or for the purposes of extracting the relevant tax. So here we find so many of these influencers and social media personalities, somebody spending 20 lakhs a month, somebody talking about a 34 lakh a wedding banquet bill and stuff like that. If you're going to flaunt your so-called lifestyle of luxurious nature onto the internet, then I think you need to be careful that the agencies can come behind you. And these are statutory provisions. So till such time these provisions are not going to be set aside by a court of law, they will continue to be applicable. Yes, they may not particularly be seen as surveillance, but it does give a huge amount of flexible power to the government to ask for a lot of your social media details. From whom? From the social
And
media service
does
provider.
the government says this is not a new law? It's just basically it's the same law of 1961. At this point, there's only they've highlighted the requirement of digital scanning. That's about it. It's the same thing, different word.
The only thing is the different world changes the complete paradigm.
Yeah.
When you had those powers in the actual world, you had limited kind of access because people were not part of the Great Indian Vomiting Revolution. People were not vomiting data on the social media or on the internet. So therefore, the government had limited powers of search and trying to confiscate things. Right now, when the two revolutions are by and large prevailing all over India, whether it's the Great Indian Data Vomiting Revolution, where Indians are vomiting data about their personal, professional, social lives online, or whether it's the Great Indian Data Recording Revolution, where Indians are recording everything that they are able to be finding of relevance and putting it on their devices, only to not realize who will have access to that later. So this is now a very fertile kind of a sea that's come up, and these new legal provisions are nothing but a big fishing net that's sought to be put into these waters and try for the government to cull out as much information as possible. And whatever information is being given about you by social media companies to the government will be taken along with the relevant certification under the Bharatiya Saksha Adhiniyam. And that being so, it will be admissible evidence. And once it's admissible evidence, you will have tough time trying to defend yourself. More significantly now with the use of AI coming in, another aspect could be that with the use of AI by the taxation authorities, it could lead to an AI surveillance by the tax agencies who could be using AI for the purposes of constant monitoring your social media accounts for the purposes of finding are you violating the law or are you spending far more than what your known sources of income are going to be. So very interesting times, but people need to wake up. Of course, legal issues need to be addressed.
A small
And
piece of
if a
advice.
challenge comes up,
People need to wake up. When you say wake up, why? Why would you say wake up?
well, I'm saying wake up from their deep slumber. The wake up from the presumption that nothing that they are seeing online is going to be used against them. Wake up from the fact that the government is here to collect as much information about you and to use that for the purposes of taxing you, for the purposes of prosecuting you, and for the purposes of putting you in a tight corner. So better well be prepared and try to expose minimal. The time has come where
I
people
do
need
have
to
a
share
question though.
information only on
Does the
basis.
department need judicial approval, prior approval to scan your platforms? Will we know that they are scanning our platforms, or is it going to happen on without our knowledge? Will platforms like Meta comply? That's also a factor
I
to
think
consider.
yeah, they don't have any choices. They are intermediaries under the Information Technology Act 2000. They're duty bound under the IT Act and the IT Rules 2021 to comply with the law of the land, to comply with the dictates of governmental agencies. And they will do so because if they don't do so, they lose their statutory exemption from legal liability, which is a much bigger exposure that they would not want to have. Because it's primarily because of the statutory exemption to legal liability given to them under Section 79 of the IT Act that they have been able to do all these activities in India. And I think they would not err on the side of caution. They will actually be very, very careful. Any kind of a mandate coming in, they will constantly comply with the same because they want their statutory exemption from legal liability to be updated and not be snatched away from them, and thereby exposing them to both civil and criminal consequences.
When we speak of privacy violation, do citizens also have equal right and enough to fight legally if they feel their privacy is violated?
Surely, I think the citizens have enough kind of teeth with them. They can actually go ahead and challenge such kind of a power under the writ jurisdiction of the High Courts under Article 226 of the Constitution or before the Supreme Court under Article 32 of the Constitution. Because at the end of the day, every Indian now has a fundamental right to privacy. And that's an integral part of the fundamental right to life. Why? Because 9 judge bench of the Supreme Court, in their own unanimous voice, have amply declared in the case of Justice Puttaswamy versus Union of India, that Indians have a fundamental right to privacy. And if this kind of an exercise is going to take place, this kind of potential provisions would be impacting their privacy. In which case, then the court will look at the constitutionality of such a provision and whether that such a provision is based on proportionality or is it based on something else. And once the courts decide, they'll decide.
A final word, Krishan Malhotra, your final take on this. As much as we've heard Pawan Dugal and Kanishk, your take on this as a tax expert, what would be your tip to law-abiding citizens need not fear, but at the end of it, it is a privacy concern.
No, certainly I do agree with you that there's going to be impacting it is going to be impacting the privacy. But only thing what we have requested, even there is a request which is also being filed with the government, with the tax authorities, that they because the law lacks not reporting clear procedure safeguards. So in case if they will come out with some guidelines that how it can be used, under which circumstances, and then it would, because anything which goes to the tax authorities, the way our systems are, nothing remains, restricted to them, and it becomes a public news. So now there should be some guidelines which should be issued, some safeguards should be provided, and some law, some rules should be brought in, so that people know that.
Because the clarification came in by the government today saying it's only for large-scale tax evasion. But there's no definition of what's large scale. 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, what's large? Or larger? So we're going to wait for that.
Wherever the search and seizure take place, it's always probably at a very big places, and those who are doing, very big businesses. And when they have a data, the authorities have a data enough to justify that there has been an evasion. But you're right, there is no definition for that. But I think some safeguard rules should be brought in so that people should have.
We're hoping for that. Yeah.
We can hope for that, yes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you. That's all I have time for. Krishan Malhotra, Pawan Dugal and Kanish Gaur.